Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching the Patreon bonus stories here on Now You Know.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. We're so glad that you could join us. We have a whole bunch of stories to look at today. And that is just because we had so much time. We were able to record a bunch of our stories earlier on in the week, which means that we get to devote more time to you guys, because you guys rock. And you made it possible for us to even do this. So
yeah, let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so this first one is the second half of a story. We couldn't fit all of it into Tesla Time News, so here's the second half.
In the main show, we talked a little bit about the iX3, the Chinese BMW fully electric SUV with a 250-mile range. And we were going to cover it last week, or we saw that there was something to cover last week, but it was just a grill. But I think that we should get into it a little bit here now that we've seen the actual car. I think that BMW really was worried about this grill thing because apparently their grill, you know, and it's changed throughout the years, but it's sort of their defining characteristic about their car is their design of the grill.
Kind of sad.
It is pretty sad. And so they did this thing where they showed a gas grill, and then they did like a digital glitchy...
Well, you're seeing it here.
You know, a digital glitchy flickering to the... Oh, it's the new grill, which looks very similar to the old grill. I don't think that we needed a thing like that. But to me, there was probably a group of either board members or somewhere high up in the chain of BMW, and they were going like, we cannot change the grill, it has to stay the same.
This definitely has to be... No, I like that. Definitely has to be a Patreon bonus story, because I want to be playing right now the Who's Won't Get Fooled Again, because I feel like it's the same grill as the old grill, and we won't get fooled again. Like, why do they care so much about things like the grill? They've lost the whole point. The whole point is electric. You should be playing that up and not being worried that your BMW fans are gonna, you know, leave you behind because of the grill.
Right. Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
There's so many people that don't understand how fast electric's going to take over, and so they're not seeing a few years down the road when everyone's going electric. They're just so worried about the people today who are still going to drive gas and want gas cars. And I just think...
And they're going to whine, and they're going to complain, and they're going to do all sorts of things. I mean, and we saw it kind of with the i3, not just the consumers of people who bought i3s, but the dealers who had to, you know, have these i3s in their showrooms, and people would come in, be interested in the Model 3, and we experienced it firsthand. They were completely not willing to sell us the car.
Right.
They were just like, it drives like a golf cart.
No, of course. I mean, no BM. That's their biggest problem. Their
Right.
dealerships don't want to sell the cars they make because they're electric and they're not going to be able to service them and make the money off that. So there's your problem, BMW.
That's true. I mean, and that's one of the problems. But I mean, the other problem is that you have these BMW bros who just I
have a short word for you. Rebrand. Just come out with the rebrand of your brand. I mean, Toyota has it with Lexus and Infiniti and all these other brands.
Yeah.
You just rebrand if you're Toyota to get your different segments. Why doesn't BMW do that?
That is a good point. I mean,
and if they had started back with the i3, they could have been completely saturated by now with their new rebrand. You can hire me if you'd like to, BMW, but I'm busy working for Tesla Time News.
So you think rebrand to a different...
Yeah.
It's sort of like a
completely different, nothing, you wouldn't even think of BMW when you say it. It's like German electric engineering.
Wow.
Boom.
That's their little slogan?
That's your slogan. I'm handing all this to you on a silver plate. It's free for you to use if you'd like. I would grab it before Daimler does. That's all I'm saying.
That's a good point. No, I think the rebrand, that's a good idea.
Yeah. We're solving world's problems right and left here. That's a Patreon bonus for you. I hope a BMW executive is one of our patrons. I highly doubt it, but
you never know.
You never know. So, Jesse, you're probably too young to remember this, but back in the United States, before the Environmental Protection Agency was in place, the U.S. was not the clean place that it is today. And so what you're seeing on the screen right now are photos that are showing what places we all know and love, like New York, look like before the EPA was around. Now, I know it's hard to picture that because it seems like it's been there forever, but just a little before I was born, it was not a thing.
Right. And I mean, you can see all of the pollution. I mean, it looks super smoggy in
It looks like
New York.
China.
I know. It looks just like that.
And I guess one of the reasons why I want to bring this to your attention is that the EPA is under attack. I mean, we've got Scott Pruitt, who is in charge of the EPA, who doesn't kind of even believe in... I mean, before he was at the EPA, he was actually fighting the EPA all the time as the Attorney General of Oklahoma. So now he's in charge. It's like putting the fox in charge of the hen house.
Right. And so let's talk about Oklahoma for a minute. So this happened quite a while ago. This was...
Yeah, this is back in the, I think, started in the 60s and then went through the 70s and stuff until we finally figured it out.
So the town of Pitcher, Oklahoma, used to be a town of 25,000 people, and every single one of them had to move because it was declared as an EPA Superfund site.
Now, what does that mean, Superfund site?
So it's not Superfund site.
Oh, no, that would be good.
Because that sounds good.
Right.
This is the opposite of that.
Right.
Super fun site is like a super really not fun site. Basically, there was a lot of nickel mining that happened in that area. So the companies that ran the nickel mines would just drag ore and stuff out of the earth, and then they would crush it up to get all the nickel ore out, and then they would just leave the rest of the ore, not ore, but the rest of the crap that was not nickel just lying around in giant piles called chat piles.
Chat piles?
Yeah, because I guess they call it chat, the stuff that they don't need, even though that's a...
This is before chatting was a thing?
And, right, yeah.
Well, what's the problem with piles of chat?
Well, it was full of lead and other disgusting and terrible toxins. And basically nobody knew this, so they used chat for everything because they had all of this extra chat lying around, so the kids would go ride their bikes up and down the chat piles. They'd put it in, they'd make their sidewalks out of it. They'd, anytime you needed dirt to fill a hole, you go to the chat yard, grab some chat, put it in the thing. They used to put it in their sandboxes.
Wait, so this is footage of what the town looks like today?
Yeah, so it's a complete ghost town because no one can live there. It got into the water table, poisoned the water. It wasn't found out that this was a problem until a guidance counselor from one of the schools was like, why are all of the kids in this town having severe learning disabilities?
And what'd they find out?
So he did some research, and he had all of the students take lead tests, right? Over 50% of the students were lead poisoned.
Oh my gosh.
Basically. The EPA finally stepped in and basically made everyone leave. I mean, can you imagine that for a minute? I mean, can you imagine learning that, 50% of the children in your town
were
poisoned with poison, and that now you have to leave your home because it's just, oh, well, we destroyed the entire environment in this entire area.
Well, and the thing is, President Trump keeps talking about how, the EPA just slows down business progress and it's just regulations. Well, regulations are put in place to keep things like this from happening. I mean, there's no cost that you could put on this for the people of that town.
Right.
You've the lives lost.
Right. Livelihood and just waste.
Quality of life. I mean,
waste of human potential. Right. I mean, one of these kids could have grown up and become president, could have, cured cancer, and instead you poisoned them.
And in a relatively short amount of time, I mean, in my lifetime, the EPA has gone from what you've seen here on the screen is what America looked like to a whole lot better America. I mean, you don't look into Hudson Bay and see oil slicks anymore or cars left in New York's harbor. I mean, that's been cleaned up.
Right, and cars' emissions have been cleaned up to the point where we rarely have smog anymore.
Right. Even though they're still horrible for you and for the environment, at least they're not at the levels that you're seeing them, causing visible smog.
Right.
And so I think we're just pointing this out because it's so important if you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, you're right. The EPA is just a pain in the butt. Let's get rid of it. No, that's why you don't get rid of things like that, because we've used science over the years to prove what's good for human health and what's bad for human health, and we've made sure that we don't allow this kind of thing anymore.
Right, and I mean, regulations in terms of what can be dumped into rivers and stuff like that, it's just...
Here's the Cuyahoga River. It caught fire 13 times.
Right.
I mean, it's a river.
Right, it's made of water.
Right.
It shouldn't be on fire.
No.
Unless you're doing something wrong.
All right, here's a story, Jesse, about a company that doesn't get it. Toyota, we've talked about them before.
Wait a minute. Okay, but wait a minute. They say that electrification remains a top priority. They have more than 10 EVs planned for release by early 2020s.
Yes, but here's their powertrain boss, Kiyoshi Kishi. He stated he believes that 90% of all Toyota vehicles will still have a gas or gas-electric powertrain by 2030.
It's really half-hearted.
Well, it shows that you can play with words. The first half of the story sounded great. 10 EVs planned for release by the early 2020s. That just means that they're going to have some kind of electric part of the powertrain. Doesn't mean they won't have a gas part of the powertrain.
You don't think they're going to have... But they said 10 EVs. I think that they will have 10 EV models, but they just will limit the production of them.
Right. I mean, good point. You can have an EV model, doesn't mean you're going to do anything with it. I mean,
Right.
that we've seen that time and time again. You just come out with a model so that you can meet some fleet standards or so that your marketing looks good.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're going to push it, and it doesn't mean you're going to really push the all-battery EV version. You might just push the hybrid version.
Right. It means that, yes, some people will be able to get an EV finally that has, some feature that they want, but it probably is not going to have great range.
Right.
Is going to be my guess, or it's going to be prohibitively expensive.
And I predict that these companies are going to go out of business. You're not going to be able to compete as EVs take off. And if you're watching the show, you already get it. I mean, for instance, I talked to a buddy of the show today who got his Model 3 this month. Mm-hmm. He'd never owned an EV before, and he got his Model 3. He's not looking back. He's never going to go back.
Right. I'm never going to go back.
And he's going to EV car shows now, and he's showing it off to people. I mean, the change is happening, people, and the Model 3 is doing it.
Yeah.
And so these companies that aren't getting it, they're going to be just shoved to the wayside. It happens throughout history. It's not like it's an odd thing. There's companies by the droves that go out of business when they don't keep up with technological change.
Okay, but there are a lot of people, and this brings us to our next story. There's a lot of people who, they don't like Teslas. They're built poorly. They're really
you're talking
bad.
about Sandy Munro.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the first 5 minutes of his video, and I couldn't keep watching because he just kept talking smack about Tesla and about stuff. Like, we have a Model 3, and I've looked at the Model 3, and it looks gorgeous, and, I don't know about half the stuff he's talking about, in that first 5 minutes.
So what his company does, Munro and Associates, they are the way they make their money is they tear apart a vehicle, and it sounds awful, tear down, but it just is a industry word for taking apart a vehicle and figuring out all the components inside, how it's built, how it can be built better, and you sell this information. So if he's selling this information for $70,000 to anyone who wants to buy it, you can buy it. It's a nice big thick book that tells you every part, how it works. And he's selling this primarily to Korean and Chinese companies who want to figure out, hey, how does the Model 3 work? We want to build one. Good business to be in. But what he's been reporting lately is he's not done with his report. First of all, it won't be done till May. So in my opinion, he shouldn't be talking about any of it until his report's completed. But what he's been talking a lot about in the beginning is the fit and finish of the Model 3. And he's not very pleased with the quality. He says that the Model 3 is in the lower 50% of cars he's seen. Keep in mind, Sandy bought 2 early Model 3s. That means they had to probably be the first 100 off the line for him to have started this teardown.
Okay.
And Elon has admitted that in the beginning, they were still training employees, they were still training robots, and that the build quality was not going to be perfect. That's why he was selling to employees. He knew he'd get a lot less complaints from them.
Right, okay.
So, Sandy showed off some parts, like on the trunk where he could put his finger into one joint and he couldn't put his fingernail into the other side of the joint. And yeah, that's not very good, is it? But our Model 3 does not look like that. And we haven't heard too many other people talking about their Model 3s looking like that. So he's picking on some very specific points that maybe Tesla didn't get quite right. But what he did say, if you watch all his videos, is that he's blown away by the powertrain, the handling, the suspension, the beauty of the car, the electronics, and the battery, and all the tech.
Okay, wait. So what? Okay, I didn't watch the video, but what did he say? Like, what about what?
He basically said that the batteries, for instance, were the most high-tech, unbelievable batteries that he's ever seen. They beat LG, they beat Samsung. He can't believe the specs on them.
In terms of what?
For instance, if you measure the difference in milliamps between each battery cell, you get a 0.03 milliamp difference, which he's never seen before.
Wow.
If you talk about the handling, he says the double wishbone suspension in the front and the 5-point suspension in the back is better than anything he's practically ever felt on a car of this price. Earlier videos went for a ride at like 30 miles an hour on just kind of, city streets. That wasn't on the track. When he got the track results back, he was blown away by that. Basically, he was blown away by the beauty of the car. He hasn't seen any car in this price range that looks like that. Of
course.
Like everything that we've said. The only thing that he doesn't seem to be excited about is how the car is put together. He thinks that the fit and finish isn't quite as tight as the tolerances he'd like to see. But what I'm saying is, if he's got an early car and other people aren't feeling that way, and Tesla says they're improving it by the day, then his complaints aren't that founded, in my opinion. I think that he's trying to do what he's good at, which is telling manufacturers how the car is put together. That doesn't necessarily mean that the car is a bad car.
Okay, all right. I guess I'll have to go back and watch some of those videos.
Yeah, really watch it and read between the lines, and you'll see what I'm saying. That basically he says a lot of good things about the car, but he doesn't say them for very long. But he harps for a long time on small things.
Interesting.
Just one quick thing. When he's looking at the MCU of the Model 3, he just looks at it like a piece of artwork. He said he didn't see anything like this other than in an F-16 fighter jet. He said he thinks it looks like it was made to be, in a military hardware, the way it's built. He's never seen anything like this in another car.
Wow.
So, I mean, he praises so many things about the car, but what does the press pick up on? What do other people pick up on? The stuff that he harps on.
Interesting. Thank you so much for watching our Patreon bonus stories. Patreon bonus stories doesn't quite have the same ring as Patreon bonus story.
I think it does.
Because you're adding this extra like half syllable to it. Patreon bonus story, Patreon bonus stories.
Are you guys going to complain about it?
I don't know. I mean, should we come up with a different name for it?
Okay, I like it.
I don't know. I mean, post some comments. Just post comments about everything that we talked about, because I love hearing from you guys. So comments, because you guys all super rock.
I also like that you guys are getting to know each other too.
Yeah,
you start to notice in the comments that then there's no mean sniping.
No mean sniping.
In our YouTube stuff, it's always like, shut up, I don't believe you.
You are so dumb. I can't even believe that you walk on the same earth as I do.
Yeah, I'm just really glad that you guys are so nice. And
are you guys feeling that too? That we're part of a community. You don't even have to talk to us in the comments. Feel free to talk to each other. This is fantastic.
It's going to be fun. Someday we're all
if someone's looking for a job, this would be a great place to list for it. Absolutely. There's over 1,000 of you out there.
Yeah,
go ahead.
These
are the best people on the planet.
It's true.
These are the people that get it.
So anyway, thank you so much for being a part of this community. We want to keep doing fun and awesome things.
You're helping
with
us do
you
that.
guys, because it's such a great environment. And it's honestly, it's so much better than just our standard YouTube content. So if people are like, well, why is this behind a paywall? It's honestly because this paywall, and I know it's $1 a month, and we really appreciate all of you who support us, but that paywall is actually just a filter for people who actually care.
No.
And it's so wonderful to have all of you people here in one space. It's great.
Yep.
I mean, it's sort of like if you went to a concert, right? Everyone there likes the band.
That's true.
And everyone's having a good time. I guess we're the band. I mean, in a way, you're kind of also the band. You make it all possible. It's
right.
It's one of those really positive.
It's like one of those concerts where they're like, all right, this side, shout out now.
That would be fun. Let's try that now. Everyone on this side. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Now you know.